Hey guys, it's Kate. I hope you're having a great day. I wanted to come at you with another watercolor abstract, but this time with some more texture. So if you want to stick around, we will finish this painting together, and I hope you love it as much as I do. I'm going in first, first I'm working on my Meliang palette and I'm going in with a mixture of red and brown just to kind of tone down the red a little bit, make it a little more earthy for my base. And it's a very watery mix, just kind of all over the page there. And then I'm going to go in with some more yellow ochre and some more of the brighter red. And I'm just dropping that in some random areas right now. What I kind of like to do, what I've noticed that I gravitate to is I like to kind of get down a base and then go into where some of the natural color borders are and some of the natural progression of contrast. So, the parts where the paint kind of settles, I tend to go over that with some brighter color and it just adds some extra texture for me. And then I'm also working on Artist Loft paper today, which is a cellulose paper that's pretty inexpensive. It's from the Michaels craft store if you have one near you or if you're able to get it online. But I just ended up trying it, I think a couple of months ago, and usually I use cotton paper, but I've been really enjoying playing with this as just kind of an inexpensive, fun paper. And I know a lot of people also paint on cellulose paper, so I like to include those videos on my channel too for people who experience the cellulose instead of the cotton. But I'm trying to add some different values and some lights and darks and some different colors, but I'm sticking to a pretty limited color palette today. And I'm going over letting that base come down and dropping in that darker, richer color in some of the parts where it just seems like it belongs, I guess I could say. And just really embracing the abstract shapes and very organic look of the painting. So I'm really going for some extra texture today. And I know I've made videos in the past about adding salt and different things like that. But this time I'm kind of going to embrace some of that texture you get, one from cellulose paper where sometimes you get a little bit of the cauliflowering, and if you are painting over paper that's starting to dry a little bit, you can get some of those sort of hard lines and puddled looks, and you can see that in some parts of that paper, especially up toward the top right corner. So I'm really just kind of painting over, and I'm also going to add some more texture once I get my layer down with some blotting and some dragging. So we will just continue with finishing up the base layer on this paper, and I'm getting pretty close to the end of that, but I just want to make sure that my colors are where I want them to be. I have enough darks and enough lights. One of the things that's nice is adding that extra um, brightness in your painting so it's not all kind of one note. And so now I'm going in with my baby wipe and blotting, and I really love the kind of marbled texture that it leaves over the color. And it takes back some of that paint and just leaves you with a really nice look. And so then one of my favorite things to do, dragging, is I want to kind of keep going with that marbled look texture. So I'm following some of those natural lines that I can see on the paper, the ones that jump out at me first, and I'm going over them with some very dark paint with my brush. And since my paper is still damp, it's going to spread out a bit, but in some of the places where it's already dried, I'm going to do some dragging out. So I'm just going to help it along and spread. And so when you're dragging, you can kind of dip your brush, blot it off some of the excess water because you want it damp but not soaking wet. And then kind of drag it along on one side and it will really soften that watercolor edge. And I love doing it with that rich red color. It just adds such a pop of brightness to the page. And I have done a few paintings with this technique, and it's one of my favorites. Even when I'm doing something like those landscapes that I've done, and just anything where I want one hard edge and one soft edge. And I really think it's so beautiful. It's one of my favorites. So I'm going back in with my yellow ochre and getting those awkward angles with my left hand, which is even more awkward, but I'm just kind of embracing the mess. And so I'm going around some of those other natural lines and adding in some of that yellow. And I'm letting the composition kind of naturally come out based on where the water's been. So I'm just finishing up with my yellow and making that blend in and get a nice cloudy look over that beautiful texture that's there on the page. And I'm adding in a little bit down to that lower left corner and on the top, and just making it almost like you see those like rocks and gemstones that have the veins of color in them. I love that look, and I love when I can kind of reproduce that a little bit on paper with watercolor and make those sort of organic shapes with some hard and soft edges. And that yellow ochre mixed with the red is some of my favorite. And this is a very warm mix of colors. So once I finish putting in the last of my yellow, and I'm going to let that dry, I'm going to go in with a little bit more coolness to just add some more contrast to that. So I'm going in with a little bit of a mixture of Prussian blue and lemon yellow from the Meliang palette, and I'm making a nice cool greenish blue mixture. And this is also kind of a beautiful turquoise color if you lightened it up with some more water. But I wanted the coolness to be a good contrast with those warm reds and yellows in the background. And I'm mixing a nice dark color so I can put some saturated leaves on the top layer. And then to increase the contrast even more, I'm actually putting my leaves into the lighter areas. So I'm letting the background kind of guide where I'm putting my foliage, if that makes sense. And I'm just having it kind of follow a sort of an organic path and just putting them in where they seem like they'll fit the best. And so I'm letting them kind of branch off a little bit and just adding them so they flow through the painting and just kind of bring everything together. And so you'll see I'm adding my second one in that top right hand corner, and I'm facing it in a different direction this time too. I just want them to be almost scattered on the page a little bit. And so I'm just going to work in a couple of different directions on this paper and going in with my smaller brush so I can get the smaller details. But I'm doing the dark saturated color just to make sure that it really stands out from the background. And I love that color mixture. The Meliang palette and really the Mozart Kohlrabi palette too, they both do really well with color saturation. I've been really happy using both of them. I did have a request to compare the two palettes, so I'm actually working on that video. And I know that there's another new Meliang palette that got released recently with some more colors. I don't have that one right now, but it may be something that I try. If you are interested in a video or maybe an unboxing, let me know in the comments below and maybe we can put something together. But for the colors that I have in this palette, it has been a wonderful palette to have. And I think, bottom line for me is that they're very comparable in quality. I think the Mei Liang palette has a bit of an edge on the Kohlrabi palette because it has a built-in mixing well, basically, where the kohlrabi has the swatch paper in the lid and it's just kind of glued in there. So I'm doing my third leaf vine at the bottom, just to get back to what we're doing now. And I'm kind of getting to the end of my paint. So I end up mixing just a little bit more, but I'm putting in my dark leaves there and just making sure that I have some good coverage on my paper. And I want a couple little extra sprigs kind of popping out and peeking from behind the red, and just putting them in those variable directions so that it's almost just kind of an organic feeling on the page, and letting everything face in different directions. Once I finish putting in my leaves, I want to keep using some more of that blue-green color. And so I'm adding in some dots and tiny circles where some more of that yellow is. And something I've been doing lately that I really like is kind of grouping my dots sort of close together where their, I guess, origin point is, and then scattering them more as they come in toward the center. And I really love that look. And I kind of have been bringing the two areas almost together. So I kind of move them in the same direction toward each other from opposite sides of the page. And I really like how that looks. It's sort of subtle and it's not everywhere. It's in just, some certain select part of the page. And I just really love how it looks. And it adds that extra little bit of texture on top. One thing that I've been practicing more is adding more layers to my different projects. So whether it is watercolor pages or intuitive art or doing my journal pages and things like that, I've been really trying to get extra layers on there. And I think that really helps with the look. So now that I'm done with my dots, I'm going in with my gold paint from that same palette. And I really like the gold in this palette, and actually the kohlrabi too. I'm going in some of those areas where I had the yellow ochre and just kind of following over it with some of that gold paint. And I'm dragging that out a little bit too in some areas so that it has kind of a nice little blend on the page. And once we get done with this, I'll be doing a close-up too so you can see how it looks in the light when it's reflecting off the gold. But it's a very nice paint color. And I love the little shiny accents, and it really makes the painting look so much richer to me. So I'm just finishing up some of those touches in those areas, and then I am going to go in with my jelly roll and do some doodles. But I don't want to put my gold in too many areas. I'm just trying to be a little bit strategic about where it goes so that I have it more as an accent and not a big part of the painting, if that makes sense. So I'm following along some of those natural lines, but I'm trying to have kind of a light hand, but enough that you notice it when it's in the light and reflecting back at you. And I love those finishing touches. And so I end up mixing just a little bit in with the red as well to add some extra interest. And I love how textured this paper is. This has been so fun to make. And so I'm going in with my white jelly roll, adding in some more contrast and another layer on top of the leaves. And I really like doing just kind of a loose, sketchy look. And you can see on my lines, I'm not even really following the outline of the leaves or anything, just basically the general direction and making just very sketchy, broken marks. And I'm following the stem and just giving it some more interest. And the jelly roll is, well, I always talk about my love-hate relationship with the gel pen. So I've got the Uniball and the jelly roll. Both of them sometimes don't like to make clean lines, but I've actually kind of embraced that and I'm embracing the broken line look. So maybe I'm not pressing hard enough. I don't know. But I just can't seem to make it always right perfectly. So I'm finishing up my lines on those leaves, and I will be doing our favorite close-up after everything is done and dry. But I can't forget the most satisfying part, and that is taking off the tape. And I hope that you use some of these techniques. You never know when you're trying different things what you'll really love doing. And it's just great to do these exercises because it helps us learn, for one thing, and two, it helps us, I think, find our style. You learn more about what you really like to do and what you think is beautiful. And I think that gold is beautiful and hope you can see it reflected in the light while I move around the finished painting. And this was so much fun to do, and I hope you enjoy doing it with me. And until next time, keep creating.